In the world of video games, there's a single word that'll make most elite gamers erect, or even in some cases prematurely ejaculate. That word is Valve. To some, Valve is just a video game company that's responsible for some fucking bangers, great games, and a really good platform called Steam. But to others, Valve is a fucking church. It's a holy sanctuary, a metaphysical entity that gives their life meaning. They view Gabe Newell, co-founder of Steam, as the goddamn savior, and that Steam was his gift to the plebeian gamers where he put our mouths against his supple titties and demanded we suckle, and thus we do, Steam being the most popular platform to play games on. There is competitors such as Epic Games Store and Origin, but for the most part, people are choosing to use Steam. And Valve launched that in 2003, and since then, it's just become the gold standard. But Valve's known for more than just Steam. They're known for really good games as well. They don't really develop shit anymore, but what they have developed have always been fucking hits that are timeless. Half-Life, Half-Life 2, Counter-Strike, and all forms of Counter-Strike, Dota. The list goes on. Left 4 Dead, Portal, all of these games that everyone loved universally, massive successes. But there's one game in their entire catalog that absolutely flopped and ate some of the fattest shit I've seen in a long time, and it's their most recent game, Artifact. So let's dive into the history of Valve's biggest and most shameful stinker, Artifact. So the game was a multiplayer card game that was a little different from most card games out at the time. Instead of one central board where the card game's being played, there's 3, and each guarded by a tower, borrowing some elements from MOBA Dota 2. By combining elements from the MOBA and the elements from something like Hearthstone, they were hoping that they could carve out a unique identity for the card game that players would absolutely froth at the mouth for. Because MOBAs are so wildly popular, as is Hearthstone, and Hearthstone is an incredibly lucrative game because you buy card packs to fill your deck, and you can get a whole bunch of duplicates, end up spending $1,000 and never get a single rare that you were looking for. That's a really profitable business plan for a video game. So it makes sense why Valve thought if they combined the most addictive gameplay from MOBAs with the most lucrative type of game, card game, that it would be a huge cash cow for them. And Valve has a track record of all of their multiplayer games having a long-lasting and really high-level community, such as games like Team Fortress 2. Team Fortress 2 is over a decade old, and it still has a decent-sized community with its own economy. Every multiplayer game Valve has published has had these long-lasting communities, every single one, and they've all been very profitable for Valve, with the hats in Team Fortress 2, the skins in Counter-Strike. These have all just been really successful ventures, so if you could have the same thing with a card game like this, it could have been massive for them, and I believe that was the goal. However, the game just wasn't fun. And it certainly didn't help that it came at a time where people were really getting tired of being abused for their wallets by video game companies. This game was pretty much dead on arrival. This was basically a fucking abortion of a video game announcement. At the International 2017, Valve decided it was a good idea to hype up a huge new release. You know, Valve's back in the business, baby, we're making a new game. So they show the teaser trailer at the International, expecting huge thunderous applause, people to be fainting over themselves and going wild, already throwing money on stage like panties at a One Direction concert, but instead, they get boos and loud sighs of disappointment and disbelief. Look at the clip from the announcement. This is hugely wrong time, wrong place. They're at a fucking Dota championship, a massive tournament for Dota, and they're advertising a game that's a spin-off that really just seems like a cash grab. Obviously, it wasn't going to generate hype. However, they were able to bounce back from this. Over the course of 2018, Artifact started to get a positive reputation in the community. It was revealed that basically the guy who invented fucking card games was behind Artifact, Richard Garfield, the man who invented the Magic the Gathering, fundamentally. He was the creative mastermind behind this game. It started getting this hype, you know, this ain't a game for your mom. Your mom's too fucking stupid to handle this kind of card game. This is a real man strategy card game, but you can't even look at it like a card game. It's reinventing what a card game is. It's like a real-time strategy game for generals of the US Army. This shit is super complicated, and people loved that, and it worked. And interest in the game grew steadily, and by the time the next International rolled around, people were looking forward to more information about Artifact. And then fast forward to its release in November of 2018, and the reception was super lukewarm. Now, lukewarm reception is a big deal because all of Valve's games get universal praise. You see, in video games, there's certain companies that when they release a game, you're genuinely not allowed to criticize it negatively or have a negative view of it for at least 6 months after its release. You are not allowed to, or you'll be outcasted by internet communities, called a loser, clout chaser, and just trying to be edgy with a different opinion. You're not allowed to have a negative opinion. Companies this goes for is Nintendo properties such as Zelda, Super Mario Maker, Mario Odyssey. Bethesda games you can't criticize. Elder Scrolls or Fallout for a good period of time, except for Fallout 76. That was just a punching bag across the globe. Rockstar games, you're not allowed to say anything bad about a Rockstar game until at least a year. And Valve. Those are the main ones that you are not allowed to have a negative opinion of. So people feeling confident enough to give a lukewarm opinion on a new Valve release, and Valve hadn't released a game in a long time, that's a big fucking deal, and Valve felt it. Because you see, on launch, Artifact had a major problem that wasn't even gameplay related. It was the economy. Artifact did what Hearthstone didn't. It wasn't free to play. Hearthstone is free to play, and you can grind for cards and card packs. However, most people do elect to buy the card packs because the grinding does take a long time, and it's only for the really committed and really good players. But Artifact had a $20 price tag, and the only real way you were going to be getting cards building your deck is through buying them with real money. You weren't going to be able to efficiently grind this shit out. They had a ticket system in the game that was suboptimal to say the least, and the economy was just extremely expensive for most players. It really is just a confusing model why they would think this would ever work. $20 upfront and then additional costs just to keep playing the game to get packs and stay competitive. It really makes no sense when the other card games are free to play. Now, the $20 was probably enough to make people not buy it in the first place because the launch at its absolute peak had 60,740 players. That's abominable by Valve standards and just bad in general by Steam standards. Any big budget game on Steam that launches is easily getting over 100,000 players on launch day. That's typically the norm. To put this 60,000 in perspective and how low it is, I compared it to Team Fortress 2's concurrent player count, and Team Fortress 2 came out in 2007, and in any given 24-hour time period, there's 53,000 concurrent players playing that game. So on launch, which is basically prom for video games, that's when you're getting the most activity, Artifact was just barely able to beat out a 12-year-old game on any given day. That's fucking wild. So not only were the responses to the game lukewarm from the few people that did buy it, but really no one bought it in the first place. That bitch was left alone out in the cold streets as the rain poured down on it. And it only took a week for the player base to drop 60%. By the time 2 months had passed, it went from 60,000 players to 1,500 players. So everything that could have gone wrong for Artifact was going wrong, pretty much from the get-go. And now, as of today, September 2019, the most players that have been on in the last 30 days is 150. The game is beyond dead. I'm sure Valve has already washed their hands of it. They're trying their best to forget about it and trying to erase it from the internet's history, but it's not going to happen, I'm sure, because Artifact lives on in infamy as a lesson to all video game developers on how not to launch your game, how to do research about what your audience is looking for, and how to, get them excited for your upcoming titles. But also, Artifact has another legacy, a much more recent one that I talked about, where Artifact had a second life on Twitch. You see, during its death, its spiraling demise, Artifact was comically pulling 3 viewers, 5 viewers every day on Twitch, which is lower than pretty much any game you can imagine. Even shit like the official Burger King Xbox 360 games were pulling more viewers than Artifact was on Twitch. However, when people started making fun of how low Artifact's viewer numbers were, they started to hijack that category on Twitch for Artifact streams and play their own shit. On the Artifact section on Twitch, you would always find porn or Avengers in-game. You'd find all types of incredible shit because people started to use it as this hub to dump all kinds of illegal content on, all things that go against the site's rules, and just this wild, wild west of video dumps and streams all just taking over Artifact because no one respected it, no one was watching it, and it was a good joke. And man, there was some good fucking content on the Artifact section. If you scrub through like all the weird porn, you could find entire streams of John Wick and John Wick 2, and you got to interact with the chat. It was fucking great. So Artifact, while no one liked the game, no one played the game died within 2 months, people fucking love the category on Twitch, I'll tell you that much right now. As a fan of the old Artifact category, I'm glad the game at least got made for that week or 2 weeks that Artifact was killing it on that. It was fun. That's the only good thing Artifact ever did, and the only thing that justifies its existence on the internet, I'd say. The game is by far Valve's worst game, and it probably always will be, because Valve probably won't ever fucking develop a game again. But anyway, what really killed the game ultimately wasn't just the monetization model, which sucked ass and was way too expensive, but it was just very simply the game wasn't fun enough for the players that were playing it. It wasn't fun enough to justify the incredible expense it would cost to play. It was too RNG heavy for some people while not being RNG heavy enough for others, and it just wasn't a well-liked game by even the very few people that had unfortunately subjected themselves to playing it for any meaningful length of time. So they didn't recommend it to anyone, they couldn't recommend it to anyone because they didn't want to, and they stopped playing it themselves within 2 months, and thus the game died. Now, again, I don't think Valve is going to top this in any way. I don't think you could, because this game was just a perfect storm of everything going wrong, from its announcements to its design and its timing. So that's the end of that story. Valve will probably not top this anytime soon, and I don't think we're going to see an Artifact come back if they're even still acknowledging the game's existence. So yeah, that is Valve's worst game. So yeah.